everyone, it's Ben. Welcome aboard the Bonny Rackham for Season 4, Episode 7. So close now, so close to the end. So yeah, really quick intro. Let's just get started, get a title sorted, and get into this one.
Get us underway.
Okay, yeah, so for the title, I'm going to call this one Breaking the Cycle. Inspired by the great kind of cat dilemma that comes up in conversation with Marion Guthrie and Max. And I think it's a theme, sort of breaking the cycle, that works throughout this episode in various ways. And at this near to the end stage now, it seems that some things really are breaking. Silver and Flint's partnership in jeopardy near the end, the spoke in the wheel made by former brother Billy, even sat mourning his dead wife. Woodes Rogers can't break the cycle of anger, and he wants that final word. Flint, Madi and the Queen sticking with their paths, but Silver prepared to break this cycle by the episode's end. So yeah, while it's not a quote or anything, it's more a theme of the episode. But yeah, let's get a brief summary and a rating sorted.
First item.
So yeah, this one is written by Robert Levine and Brad Caleb Kane, and it's directed by Lucas Etterlin, who last directed the great season opener. He's done some great episodes. And so we reach episode 7, a morning after the night before sort of episode, but of course, this is Black Sails, so there's little time for mourning and reflection before the pieces are being moved again, ready for the final play. Woodes Rogers is mourning his wife, he's cycling through the stages of grief, until Billy Bones gives him opportunity and he betrays everyone. And we learn Madi isn't dead, and Woodes Rogers has ultimatums all round. And Madi's supposed death is being felt by her mother and Silver, but with the reveal that she's alive in Woodes Rogers' threat, there's conflicting ideas of what's next. So unknown to Flint, Silver takes some backup measures into his own hands. Meanwhile, while Anne still recovers, Jack and Max begin discussions with Marion Guthrie in Philadelphia. Eventually she is swayed, but she has seemingly impossible demands of her own. It's a slower paced episode with no action, but as mentioned, everything is being moved into place for these final showdowns. I thought and sort of wished that they'd held on to the Silver thinking Madi was dead a little longer. I don't know why, I just thought that went on a little bit longer than it does. But the plot's moving along really nicely with some really strong character scenes in here. So yeah, I think it definitely deserves to touch in with the 9s, this one. So I'm going to give it a strong 9.1 rating. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into these character deep dives.
Next item.
So I can group this one easily. I'll start with Woodes Rogers, everyone on Nassau, and then we'll move on to Silver and Flint and everyone there. And then we'll end in Philadelphia with Janex and Marion Guthrie. Okay, so yeah, Woodes Rogers. So yeah, we start by seeing him in mourning, but he's in the anger stage right now, and he's pointing the lens. He's going to be pointing the lens at everyone but himself to start. And he's ordered Mrs. Hudson to come and speak to him. So yeah, Mrs. Hudson, she starts by defending Eleanor. She reaffirms her choices were made out of love for him. But yeah, he's seemingly not so sure on that right now. And yeah, maybe trying to keep blame with Eleanor to ease his own grief a little bit here. Telling himself what he wants to hear. We've seen other characters do that. Eleanor did that a lot herself. And then he sort of turns it on Mrs. Hudson, because while he was speaking with General Raha, he learned a truth. And yet Mrs. Hudson lied about them wanting Jack. When she informed him last season, she was spying for the Spanish, and before the trade, she sort of said they wanted Jack as well, didn't they? And then when we saw her contact Grundle, he sort of suggested it in the same episode, I believe. Honestly, I don't really get this plot point. I remembered something like this was coming, another little twist, but I don't know what it adds. It's explained away by Woodes Rogers sort of saying, a convenient lie to improve your prospects, which I kind of get, but I don't really know how. So much could have gone wrong on her taking that gamble. Well, it did go wrong, from their side. I take it far more better and more believable as it's appeared, so far until this point, that the Spanish did want Jack as well for the slight, for the disrespect. I think this plot line was already pretty good, and they've muddled it a bit, maybe a little bit unnecessarily here, especially if it's just for the reason for Woodes Rogers to kind of assign blame and suspicion to her as he does. Yeah, I won't go on about it, but it's not a plot hole per se, but I do think it's maybe overcomplicating something that I think was already pretty good as it was. I don't know, maybe I've missed something or I've not understood something, but just, I don't know, something just didn't feel, I don't think we needed to do all that, but anyway. But because it is, as Woods Rogers is saying, then yeah, he is deserving to be a little bit frosty with her here. That lie kind of spiralled into a load of shit, for both sides, but his especially. And yeah, Woods Rogers, he points out Eleanor turned her guns on him, she betrayed him, and yeah, of course, on first instinct, that's what it would appear. But again, maybe some benefit of the doubt, bit of communication, might have been a wise move before inviting the enemy over. But, I've done all that. I'm giving him his morning time. I'm giving him his morning time this first couple of scenes. But yeah, he's throwing the blame heavily at Mrs. Hudson, insinuating, she was kind of working Eleanor, or maybe got Eleanor on side with all this kind of conspiracy for her own benefit to get home sort of thing. He thinks maybe perhaps she talked around, something like that. Whether he believes this, or not, or is, again, doing some classic deflecting, I'm not too sure. But yeah, a lot of grief in this episode, everyone dealing with it a little bit different. But yeah, I think we're in the sort of anger, denial stage of his grieving process right now. So yeah, the coroner enters, and yeah, he's obviously been doing an autopsy on Eleanor, and he's clearly discovered that she was pregnant. And yeah, he doesn't know how to break the news. And Mrs. Hudson, she does a little bit more fluttering, kind of, you don't want to know this way. Yeah, and she's kind of frustrating him a little bit understandingly. I think it's maybe a little bit too late now for kind of going on tiptoes about it all. I think the damage has probably been done. When she says, yeah, you don't want to hear what he's about to say, not like this. I don't know, it's hardly a softer way to tell him. It makes it bloody obvious now, I think. But she's trying to be humane, and I get it. She's actually still got a lot of time for him in these scenes, considering what she's seen and what she's been privy to, and I wouldn't be giving him this time of day. But then again, she doesn't have much choice, so she's kind of stuck. But she's been a little bit unhelpful since she's arrived, really, Mrs. Hudson. But yeah, she's under extreme stress in regards to her children, so I get it all. Okay, so next scene, and yeah, Eleanor is lied out, her body's in front of them both in the room. So yeah, the reality is hit Woods Rogers now. He can piece together why she did what she did in learning that she was pregnant. And he asked Mrs. Hudson how long had Eleanor known. And yeah, Mrs. Hudson, she tells the truth. Obviously, again, that could be a bit of a risk to her, letting him know that she knew while they were on the ship. But she says she's not sure, but she's not known for long. But yeah, again, to be fair to Mrs. Hudson, she defends Eleanor's actions, sort of says it was all done through love. And yeah, he can believe that now, I think. He understands that now. Yeah, he's feeling the guilt of that a bit. Yeah, Mrs. Hudson, she leaves, and she leaves him alone in the room with Eleanor. And yeah, finally, I think he understands why and how, what he did led to why she is lying here now. He understands it. Yeah, and the music's really great in this scene. It's really sad and really haunting. I don't know what instrument it is, but it keeps kind of... I'm doing that like it's a violin. I don't know what it is, but you know what I mean. You've seen the scene. And yeah, and we're obviously sort of seeing kind of what he's thinking, sort of when we cut back to Eleanor, and she's just facing him, really haunting, kind of. And obviously, yeah, another great performance from Hannah New, having to just come in and, yeah, will you play a corpse? She's not the first, not the first actor in this show to have to do that. Miranda, did that for a little while, because obviously, yeah, it's kind of echoing what happened with Miranda and Flint a little bit, isn't it? So yeah, she's facing him, she sort of turns and faces him, and we just see a single tear kind of roll down her face. Yeah, really sad. You let her down, Woods Rogers, you did. But I'm gonna be fair to him in this scene. He gets it. He really gets it, and it's actually nice to see some real kind of emotion from him again. This acknowledgement of what he brought forth, that he is the main reason that she is laying there, and he apologises to her, to her corpse, and he means it. This isn't the Governor Woods Rogers, this is just a loving husband apologising to his dead wife, who, he didn't really know, he didn't really take the time to know. His mourning is cut short, though, as one of his council comes in and sort of informs him someone from the pirate side has surrendered themselves and he wants to talk to him directly. And yeah, we learn very quickly, if we hadn't already worked it out, it's Billy Bones, and he wants to make a deal. Oh, Billy, how far we've fallen. The parallels here between what Woodes Rogers did, you know, by going to Raha, going to his supposed enemy out of spite, is happening again here with Billy, you know, just that cycle. And yeah, I wonder if Woodes Rogers realises the irony when he kind of, you know, works out what's going on. He won't care though, and he will and he does use Billy's kind of betrayal to his advantage. But it is still interesting after he's just apologised to Eleanor's corpse for his part in this kind of continuation of just the cycle of violence, basically, which ties in really well with the big scene later with Max and Marion Guthrie, i.e. tying it all into the title. So yeah, Billy lets Woodes Rogers know exactly who he is, what he's achieved. I am Long John Silver, he built the resistance, he admits all of it to Woodes Rogers. It's very dangerous here for what Billy's doing, you know, he's literally saying, I'm the one that's been the pain up your arse for the last however long. It's really sad seeing Billy turn like this. Obviously there's so many layers to it, and there's still just a tiniest bit that still feels bad for him because he was betrayed, and it's Billy Bones, and that brotherhood was so important to him. Yeah, obviously it's just he's gonna get too dark with it. But yeah, Woodes Rogers is confused. You know, why are you telling me all this? But yeah, just with real anger now and just absolute disinterest in the cause. You know, he says he doesn't care about the cause now. He doesn't care about Nassau now. You know, he wants one thing and one thing only. As I say, Billy is on a spiteful revenge kick, and he will fully make the turn from being a moral guy who cared for his brothers, you know, to actively helping his enemy take them down now in this episode. He says they turned on him, left him for dead, and he wants them all to pay for it. So yeah, with Billy Bones, we are really setting up Treasure Island's kind of paranoid character. You can really believe that this dark, kind of bitter man is really getting to that place where he sort of hides and he drinks the days away, you know, worrying about his former shipmates, especially Silver, paying him a visit. That unreasonable anger for Flint has just spread now to Silver, to many called brothers. And yeah, despite Silver saying, you were the one that got everyone hyped up on me in the first place, you know, they'll believe any old crap I tell them. Billy still, he won't just assign it to Silver, he wants everyone to pay for it. And yeah, he says to Woodes Rogers he can't do it on his own. So yeah, he has Woodes Rogers' attention, obviously. Yeah, because despite the previous scene, thinking Woodes Rogers, you know, might have taken this as alright, let's just retire quietly now. Yeah, he really has nothing to fight for now except having the last word as well. Yeah, he just wants to destroy his enemies and whatever is left after, so be it. Of course, he's still in debt, so he does have more at stake than Billy, and he still wants that cash at the end of the day. But I really believe not letting the pirates win is the bigger pull for him as the victory. So Billy brings up Flint and Silver's bond, which it seems Woodes Rogers isn't really aware of. In fact, I don't know how much he's kind of known about his enemies. I think that kind of goes back to him underestimating them a bit, you know, and not really having that kind of interest in that sort of stuff. But yeah, anyway, in regards to Flint and Silver, you know, Billy informs him, united of one mind, there's absolutely no stopping them. But turn them against each other, you know, take away their common cause, and it all just goes to shit. And of course, Billy is privy to exactly what would do that. And this is where we learn, not only is Madi still alive, she's kind of been rounded up and she's one of Woodes Rogers' prisoners. How she got from being unconscious in a house on fire to the governor's sort of cells, I'm not sure. I might have missed a quick line and not noted it down. I assume Billy got her. He must have known to know she's there, he must have. And yeah, so Woodes Rogers, he goes to speak to Madi alone in a cell. Yeah, great Madi scene. She's been through a lot. She's looking a bit injured. And I gave Woodes Rogers, you know, his kindness. And I gave him his time in mourning his wife. But he is absolutely back to shithousery. Business as usual. He really is. You know, him threatening awful things to get his own way. And really, I don't think understanding why Madi doesn't want to take the offer. But yeah, Billy has obviously let him know her importance to both Silver and Flint, and that she will be a conflict for him. So yeah, first he asks about Eleanor. He knows Madi was with her, so again, I think it's very likely Billy was the one that got her. And yeah, he wants to know how she died, if Eleanor died fighting. And yeah, him asking that is further proof to me that he just never knew her in the first place. But yeah, Maddie, she's given away nothing though right now. She's defiant, not answering him, showing her bravery in the face of the enemy. So yeah, he presents a letter, which are his terms to present to her people once she leaves, you know, the Maroons, the coalition. Again, you know, I don't know, does he think this might actually work and she'd kind of leave oh so grateful? This does happen before his letter to Silver and Flint to read out, so I'm not sure if it's her defiance that leads him to make the straight up ultimatum to them, give me the cash or else, because she's pissed him off here, or if he gives her the letter anyway, assuming he'll get the cash and this is his final demand sort of thing, if that makes sense. But in this first plan, again, he's underestimating his opponents, being so in for a cause, so united. I do think he is part expecting her to take this proposed deal and sort of go away quietly. And the deal is basically, yeah, break up the coalition, tell everyone that's joined to kind of go back to where you started. For the original Maroons, so that would be her mother, to leave the island. You know, and he sort of threats anyone who doesn't obey or who joins them, further joins them, will be chained, put back in chains, separated from loved ones, and he'll burn homes to the ground, basically, is, you know, the gist of it. The same threats that Ruth, Julius, and everyone on the plantations were kind of faced with recently. You know, lovely guy. Yeah. So he finishes by saying that's what defeat looks like. And yeah, again, I love that Maddie has given him absolutely nothing in this scene, no emotion at all. She likely knows she could be used as a pawn or even killed. And yeah, when he says that's what defeat looks like, she sort of tuts and she rolls her eyes as if to say, is that all you've got? Is that all you've got, really? Is that what you came here with? And yeah, when Woodes Rogers realises she's not going to give him anything here, he heads out. But yeah, before he leaves, Maddie gives a little zinger and she says, Eleanor died fighting, as will I. I'm going to give you that little nugget of information, but I'm also going to leave you with one as well. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a pretty generous shout since it's such a short little moment for her, considering her screen time. But yeah, let's give an MVP nomination for Maddie. Very clear to a first-time viewer that she won't stop fighting for this cause. Yeah, regardless of whatever terrifying, awful threats Woodes Rogers thinks might actually work, which Flint and the Queen know, she would make the same choice they do by this episode's end kind of discussion and conclusion. So yeah, in saying that, let's now move on to Silver and Flint with a little bit of the Maroon Queen and Julius. So yeah, as briefly said in the summary, I really thought Silver's grieving was kind of this whole episode, and Maddie being alive was revealed right at the end. I remembered it as that, but yeah, no, they learn about halfway through these kind of scenes. And yeah, I actually spoke quite a fair bit about Silver's thinking in his grieving last episode, so I'm not going to go over too much kind of old ground there. Just in that, you know, like Flint was after Thomas and Miranda. Yeah, he'll go in for the cause more because he'll want to rage. And as we sort of go through the episode, we see he wants to sort of continue the war that Maddie supposedly dies for. So yeah, first we see him and he's talking to Maddie's mother, who of course has by now heard the sad news and so believes her daughter to be dead. And yeah, it's a nice little scene with them both of them just in the grieving sort of stage, way beyond tears now. Just, yeah, she looks like he did in that last scene, last episode, you know, just absolutely all cried out. And yeah, a really vulnerable moment with Silver where he doesn't really know what to say. As when Mr. Scott died, you know, he sort of said the same thing to Maddie. Of course, that's always a big deal with Silver because he's so good with words, isn't he? Because when he doesn't know what to say, I think that sort of signifies that he means he's feeling real emotion and he's kind of vulnerable. But it's when Silver has the words, you know, that the other person wants to hear, that you have to keep your guard up a little bit, I think. But yeah, so anyway, they start chatting about Maddie, you know, and he opens up to the Queen. So yeah, he tells the Queen that he and Maddie have become close, you know, basically letting her know we're sort of dating. We're going steady. So yeah, he has some idea what Maddie might have said to her as her sort of last words. He said, you know, she was curious and strong, and she was not meant to be hidden away from the world. And yeah, Silver tells the Queen, you know, he loved her, and he believes that she loved him, which obviously we know to be true. He thinks Madi would have wanted her mother to know that. And yeah, you know, real nice vulnerable moment from Silver. The Queen deep in mourning, so she doesn't really have much to add right here in this moment. She's just listening. And maybe a bit of a shock for her that Madi fell for a pirate. Maybe not so much. I don't know, you know, their chemistry was there from early on for her to see. So yeah, Silver then joins Flint in a sort of communal area where they're observing the new member of the Alliance. Flint points out to him, everyone seems to be getting along so far. And yeah, they're discussing what's the next kind of plan of action. Seems most want to go big, but Julius is sort of advising to be more cautious. Flint asks Silver about the Queen, how she's doing. You know, and Silver sort of says she's breathing. She's not doing good, but she's keeping on, basically. And he doesn't answer when Flint asks him about himself. So, yeah, you know, same sort of thing, pretty much. But yeah, I really like Flint. You know, Flint's really nice and kind and gentle with Silver here in this sort of before learning. He's looking out for him, you know, he's really looking out for his friend in his grief, really seeing in this episode what a two-way friendship this is now, and how much respect is there. It's just such a great bond now. The new Alliance, they're planning their next move, they're talking tactics, and Flint sort of joins in the discussion, or takes the lead, I should say, as he does. And yeah, he's talking going Barbados next, then Boston, you know, think big next plans. But we can see Silver is looking a bit doubtful. And yeah, Julius speaks up and he sort of calls them fools. And yeah, I like Julius. He's smart. He knows that these mismatches of people is really risky. He knows the first kink, the first sort of break in the cycle, and this whole thing sort of falls apart. And yeah, he basically gives the very warning of what Billy sets in motion, in that all the enemy needs to do is work out how to turn them against each other, and then it's game over. But Silver challenges him at this point. You know, and back to him taking up that Long John Silver role again, looking more like that in this moment. And he's standing firm on Flint's side, backing up Flint. Both of them of the same mind, like that's sort of been hinted at. You know, when they're of one mind, they're the strongest. But yeah, Julius continues, you know, he sort of brings up repercussions. He wants to remain a free man, which, yeah, Woodes Rogers has laid the very warning, the threat that any former slave that doesn't quietly retire to the interior will face serious repercussions. And the Queen sort of allowed, she agrees with his concerns, but she asks to speak to him alone. And yeah, we get a quick, nice little scene where the Queen talks to Julius. And, you know, she's trying to calm him a little bit, talk him around to the bigger vision they all have. So it's a good call from her, you know, to take him aside, speak to him alone. She knows, I think, that he's got a good mind on his shoulders, he's smart, but he is one she needs to talk down. And yeah, so we basically, you know, he knows about the buried treasure and he wants to keep it here. He wants to keep it on the island, keep it local, and he wants to build something bigger here rather than kind of risk it kind of falling apart elsewhere and going so big as Flint and everyone wants to. And yeah, that is not unsimilar to what Billy obviously proposed a couple of episodes ago, I think it was. But yeah, Julius, you know, he's sort of saying, forget taking on everyone right now. Let's just start here, build on what we've got here and see what happens. And he says a great line. He says, no one changes the world. Not like this all at once. The world is too strong for that. You know, slow and steady wins the race, he's sort of saying. He just wants some security rather than this seemingly, and it is, big gamble. And remember, he's a lot fresher out of kind of slavery than the Queen as well. He's got a lot more hindsight on the enemy, just a fresher mind of it all, and how awful it is, you know, to be in that place. And yeah, this show is doing a really great job with these scenes of making really compelling arguments for both sides, because you really can see both. Obviously, we've been with Flint all along and we really want Flint to win, but this snowball, isn't it? It's just getting bigger and it's getting more unlikely the more it's gone on, especially this season. And I think Julius is really being a voice of reason here, and that's what they're kind of doing with him. Yeah, so yeah, they're making really compelling arguments for both sides, but of course, in a moment, Madi's going to be revealed to be alive, and so yeah, as talking of snowballs, things quickly just absolutely snowball from then on. It's, yeah, just showing us not everyone is on one mind, on Team Coalition. And yeah, this thing isn't held together by the strongest of threads right now. And the strongest thread is Flint and Silver. And yeah, that's about to get frayed a little bit. So yeah, sort of speaking of holding it all together, a really nice scene with Flint and Silver now. Shock horror, my favourite scene of the episode is in the final section with my faves. But this definitely deserves its nod. Yeah, so Flint, he comes to chat to Silver alone. Again, just really lovely Flint here. I do really like this softer side of Flint. Silver, yeah, he's obviously been putting up a tough front in front of all the men, you know, hiding his grief. And he's trying just to keep it business as usual. But yeah, Flint knows he's absolutely on kind of some sort of autopilot right now. As mentioned, yeah, Silver's putting all his passion into all this in the moment, because he believes that Madi died for this, and as he says, he can't let it be for nothing. It has to mean something. So it's not that he's suddenly fully invested in this cause like Flint, you know, was immediately after Thomas. It was something they both believed in. Equally, they had the same passions for. But yeah, as we've seen with Silver, it's not the case as much as he's trying to bury himself in it. But yeah, I do think Flint has seen those glimpses of Silver's doubt as of late as well. He knows they're kind of there, but he also, you know, he knows his friend's in mourning, not thinking straight. So yeah, he offers him his return support that he gave him. He says, when I was drowning in Miranda, you know, which is just such a great way to describe grief, just drowning. Yeah, you know, when I was drowning in Miranda, you helped me find a way out of it. I will do the same for you, but in order to do that, you must trust my judgment while yours is reeling. Yeah, you know, I think he's being both just a good friend and generally looking out for him, but also because of his experience, Flint knows Silver's a little bit of a wild card right now. So yeah, he's gently sort of asking, you know, give me all the reins. Let me take full control of all the reins right now. We don't want to mess this up. We're at a really kind of crucial stage, but obviously he's not wording it like that. Flint needs this house of cards just to stay upright for a little bit longer. But he knows one emotional, passionate decision from Silver could topple the whole thing, which of course is exactly what's about to happen. Yeah, a very little, you know, bittersweet scene, this one. It's not the last kind of friendly, brotherly scene between them, but yeah, they're not going to get much more, another really quiet moment to reflect and speak like this again until that scene in the finale, when obviously there's so much at stake in that scene. It really is sort of the beginning of the end with these two. But yeah, let's move on to the next scene. So yeah, some redcoats have brought the news to the island that Madi is alive. The ultimatum has been given by Woodes Rogers. Basically, Woodes Rogers wants the cash handed over in exchange for Madi's safe return, for Madi's life, basically. No cash, he will kill her. It's pretty much the threat. So yeah, Billy, he set them up good and proper here with all his intel. Of course, it's conflicting opinions from the go. Silver is, of course, relieved, as they all are, but he understandably, well, they all do, but he understandably, he wants her back safe. No risks, no compromises, don't care how, I want her back now, sort of thing. Yeah, and he can't believe that they're considering otherwise, you know, he can't believe that they're kind of hesitating on this. But the Queen and Flint, you know, they know the cash is critical to their movement, and losing it would just do absolutely massive damage to their cause. Flint knows and explains that lines will be drawn among their new allies. So yeah, if they lose the cash, they lose the war at this point, is what he's making clear. You know, they cannot have both. So yeah, and Silver makes the good point, you know, you were willing to trade the cash for the fort a week ago, which yeah, it's a good point from Silver, who I do really understand his frustrations here. It does come across as a little bit cold from both Flint and Madi's own mother here, seemingly kind of leaving her to her fate. But as Flint points out, so much has changed in that week. All these new allies, all these people relying on them. And he says they'll come together and think of the way to get her back. But it doesn't sound the most convincing. It is sounding a little bit like that kind of ruthless, brutal Flint, not willing to let go of the bit, you know, regardless of human cost. But of course, as he's pointing out, there's so much to it. There's so many people involved now. But Silver's getting angry. The girl he loves is alive and he wants her back safe. Yeah, he just sort of asks Flint flat out, is this war more important than her life? And yeah, Flint hesitates, but he says yes, it is. But again, you know, he's quick to say, like, look, we can get her back, we can put our heads together and we can think of the way to get her back. But he won't let this very clear plan divide them work. You know, he knows that's exactly what's going on here. Madi wouldn't permit it, which of course, yeah, we know is the truth. We saw that she's going to keep fighting to the very end. die a martyr if she needs to, like Vane. If she has to, we know that as well from the next episode when she doesn't even flinch when faced with a gun to her head. And Flint reminds him, when they're of the same mind again, you know, there's nothing they haven't been able to do. Which is so true. They've done some near impossible things when they're of the same mind. But as we're going to see at the end here, they are just clearly not of the same mind. They're really not. It's really another tough moral quagmire as a viewer, for sure. Which, you know, add that rewatch hindsight for next episode, where we know if Silver doesn't make his next move, Woods Rogers would have shot Madi point blank. He was ready to shoot her. Flint underestimated his reason still at this stage, or maybe he's just telling Silver what he needs to hear, and he knows that Madi is maybe dead in one way or the other, most likely. I don't know, we can come back to that maybe next episode, but I think he generally thinks he can do something, and they can think of something. I don't think he's completely given up on Madi, but he absolutely cannot give up the cash right now. So yeah, last scene with these guys, and they're all back on board the Walrus. It would seem that Silver has calmed down, and he's seen to Flint's reason, and he trusts that they're going to come up with something. But Hans comes to talk to him alone, you know, in regards to Flint. And yeah, remarks, you know, Flint's confident that things will work out kind of okay, but he knows that Silver's prepared for failure. I always kind of assume he was the one that likely helped him dig it up, but the way he's narrating it is a little bit weird, as if he kind of observed it happening rather than contributed to doing it. Yeah, it's obviously written as an end of episode kind of hype scene to what's to come, but it's a little bit unclear on what exactly has gone on there. So yeah, it seems the thing most first time watchers have been fearing is eventually going to happen. It's being set up. You know, Hans says Silver knows eventually he's going to have to concede to Flint or kill him. And yeah, you know, the two things just cannot exist in the same universe anymore. And the look of knowledge in that statement from Silver says that he means business. But of course we know he will do all that he can to avoid that final unavoidable conclusion, as will Flint. In terms of Madi, he's not taking any chances of losing her again, of, you know, her death. And yeah, so it's revealed by Hans the cash is no longer in the ground, and the camera focuses on it hidden in the hold. And yeah, it's a great setup for the next episode with these guys. Okay, let's end with my guys. Let's end with Max, Jack, Anne, and meet the fabulous Marion Guthrie. So we start with Jack and Anne. These two, this episode, stop. Stop. Jack's tenderness with her, I just can't. I can't. So yeah, this first scene, we see them, you know, Anne's still in recovery in her hammock, and Jack's sort of redressing her bandages on her hands. It's clearly really painful for Anne, and Jack's being so gentle with her. And yeah, Max sort of comes to the door to inform Jack they'll be arriving soon. They've made it to Philadelphia. And yeah, Anne, she still understandably wants absolutely nothing to do with Max right now, and she just turns right away to avoid any chance of eye contact with Max. And sort of Max gets the picture and she leaves. She doesn't linger. Once Max leaves, Anne points out she hasn't been back down since. And Jack, he sort of defends Max a little bit. Defend, maybe not the right word, but, you know, he sort of says, well, you did tell her to fuck off, you know, and she's listening, which is true. You know, she's respecting Anne's wishes and she's kept away. And yeah, Anne sort of tells him the rest of what Max said, that she won't apologise because Anne will know it's a lie. You know, and Anne sort of says part of her wanted to lash out. Jack's listening, giving Anne the chance to get it off her chest. You know, and he sort of knows she's got more to say, and he sort of says, and the other part? And Anne continues, the other part knew how easy it would be for Max to lie. Again, as I spoke about last episode in quite a lot of detail, Anne and Max, they know each other too well now, which is why Max knew Anne would recognise a lie. So, you know, that's why she didn't. She did give the truth. She owed Anne that. In this moment, Anne is conflicted. She even sort of asks Jack, you told her to keep away, right, didn't you? As in, you know, is she really doing this off her own merit? Yeah, she is, Anne, she is. But Jack sort of doesn't answer, and he tenderly kisses her on the forehead, and he sort of jokes, you'll have plenty of time to murder her another day, but for now, you know, get some rest. He knows they're going to sort it out, I think. I'll come back to that point kind of in the last scene. But yeah, I think Jack knows that Anne still has something in there for Max, but he's sort of telling her, you know, a bit like a parent to a child, you know, don't focus on all that now. get yourself well. And I think it's also, a sweet, encouraging, you'll be back to yourself, your proper self soon. But yeah, just a really nice moment and a really lovely scene between them, just them being them and just having a little catch up. I just really do love those little scenes. So out on deck now, and they've boarded. I love the culture shock for Jack while he's here in Philadelphia. He's been in Nassau so long. Well, I mean, they all have, but he's really struggling with it. He's absolutely out of his kind of element and his comfort zone from the absolute go here. First thing he's grumpy about is the cold. Obviously, used to very warm weather from where they are. And I love the knowledge that all the actors had to pretend they were freezing cold the whole time, and they're obviously still in Cape Town, filming in very warm weather in South Africa. So he's going over some sort of price tax list with Featherstone. Unfortunately, when you're buying, doing things legit, often is much more pricey, Jack, I'm afraid. But Max sort of comes over and asks, when are we heading to meet Eleanor's grandfather, sort of thing. And Jack is very quick to be like, oh, not us. Not us, not you. He wants Max nowhere near this at this point. Like Anne, he's still not sure on this reunion. He's kind of being very wary. Also, like Anne, understandable. You made the mountain, Max, unfortunately. You've got to climb it yourself to kind of get that trust back. You're almost at the top. As he sort of says in mock accent, been a little while since he did that, isn't it? But just as funny as the first time, if not funnier. I won't do it all. But he sort of says, he's saying, what's to stop her handing him over, kind of first chance she gets. I can't remember. What did he say? The notorious Captain Jack Rackham, he's doing all that. He's really giving her a hard time, mocking her accent. But it's really funny. I love how over it Max is. She's just sort of rolling her eyes like, oh, fine, get it out your system sort of thing. But again, I think she maybe had to expect this for a bit. But she's being humble with it. She's taking it, biting her tongue until she can prove herself, which she will very soon. So they're walking through the town now, him and Featherstone, heading towards grandparents Guthrie's estate. But Jack has another little moan about the cold. I can no longer feel my balls. Thank you for that information, Jack. This is actually a really brilliant Jack episode. So funny. I really have missed him the last 3 episodes. He's been about here and there, but he's not been Jack. It's been very morbid, hasn't it? Very dark. So props to Featherstone here in this moment, because he defends Max. He sticks up for her, and he tells Jack that he's got her wrong. Says she stuck up to Barringer for him and Adele, and that she hasn't crossed anyone that hasn't crossed her first, which sort of echoes what Anne will say next episode, I believe. I ain't sure who broke it first, but it broke. I'd still probably argue that Max broke it first. But as I've said before, it did all get very messy with the whys and the whats, and, adding the recently revealed Mrs. Hudson lie to give herself better standings. And it's all very complicated. And as sort of Featherstone's saying, no one's a saint or innocent here at the end of the day. We're all kind of guilty of something. So I think that's kind of the point that Featherstone is making to Jack here. Like, let's give her a little bit of a break. But Jackie's still a little bit dismissive, though. He sort of says, I heard you. But we will see that he has, I think. But he doesn't want to discuss Max any further right now as they're here. Jack asks Featherstone to kind of sort out a surgeon for Anne while he goes to speak to Eleanor's grandfather. But Jack's mind is obviously on the business in hand. A lot hangs in the balance to what Mr. Guthrie says. And as he points out to Featherstone, he doesn't want Woods Rogers to win. Jack's main aim after all that's happened with Teach and Anne is, just to have the last word, to beat Woods Rogers and for Woods Rogers to know that it's him that beat him. Obviously, just going right back to that carriage scene, right back to those scenes when they met, just this little thing they've had since the beginning, and obviously the hell Woods Rogers has put them through this season. It's not even that he wants to kill him, he just doesn't want Woods Rogers to be victorious in this whole thing. He sort of says, this is what all this is for. I sort of can't fail sort of thing. So Featherstone very helpfully says, so don't fail. As if it's the easiest thing ever, which, as we're about to see, it really isn't. Okay, so but before that little meeting with Joseph, we get this little scene. I love this scene. I really love all the Philadelphia scenes, but this one is great. I love it for Jack. Well, at least to start. So yeah, he enters, Guthrie's mansion or whatever we're supposed to call it, townhouse, and he's sort of sent to the waiting area, and a young woman, just a young socialite, I don't know, a young woman notices him and just works out from his garb that he's a pirate. And I love, Jack soaking up the interest and the admiration, and she's asking about Nassau and the pirates, if he's from there. She asks about Teach, if he knew Teach. And then she asks if he knows Jack Rackham. I think Jack's proud his name was said alongside Teach, which is a nice callback to that conversation with Anne, about standing side by side by giants. And if that's how he's to be remembered, his name said next to Teach, then he's happy with that sort of thing. And yeah, she mentions Jack Rackham's part, in stealing the gold, the Spanish gold under Flint's nose, and he's happy to admit that one. Yeah, that happened, while still not admitting he's Jack Rackham. And yeah, she's sort of reeling the questions off, pretty quick, without really caring for his version of the answers. And she sort of asks about Vane, and and this is a really nice little speech that Jack's kind of getting into, talking about his friend. Yeah, he's given her some great insight on Vane, calls him loyal to a fault. But yeah, she just sort of interrupts in mid-flow, I heard he boiled a head and made it into a stew, something like that, and something really ludicrous like that. And Jack is kind of like, huh? Yeah, Jack's astonished, as obviously this is the Ned Lowe events have just clearly been whispered and changed into something absolutely ridiculous, and he can't believe someone would believe, such nonsense. For why? For what reason? Sort of thing. This woman, this pirate enthusiastic, has just heard nothing but exaggerations, tales of monsters, which of course ties this scene in so well with that final Flint scene in the finale. And yeah, Jack trying to kind of talk sense into her, like I say, why? But she doesn't have any interest to hear anything that counteracts the stories she's heard. Jack sort of asks, where did you hear all this? And she says, as if it's the gospel, she read it in a newspaper, which today would be I saw it on a TikTok. Someone talked a good game on TikTok, and boom, now that's the truth for me. That's pretty much what the writers are doing here, I think, what is going on here. But it's interesting, because he says, put down the newspapers and read a book, which definitely, for this time frame, I agree with. Of course, civilization in this case has control of the papers, they control the narrative in terms of pirates are concerned. But, him saying about the book could be as bad. It could be as bad. It depends who's writing the book. Is the book being written by a Woodes Rogers type, who might leave some convenient things out? Is it maybe by an honest Anne or Vane type who'll give you the bare bone facts without much fringe? Or maybe it's a Jack type, where you'll get some sort of truth, but you get a lot of guff as well. Or maybe, some non-fiction books have absolutely been written by Silver types. Stories and exaggerations on the very basic and smallest of truths. Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure this is a very kind of deliberate nod to kind of pirate history by the writers. The fact, that one of the first pirate books... Hang on, I've got it here. Yeah, the fact that one of the first kind of pirate books written at the time that a lot of historians use, this kind of had two edits. It came out first and it was a lot shorter, and then a second edit came out. Basically the two edits kind of contradicted each other in a few places, so they kind of just picked the most exciting story with a lot of them. A lot of the real John Rackham kind of stuff conflicts. Yeah, no one really knows who the true author of that book is. Daniel Defoe is a known alias. It's well known that there's likely been a few ghostwriters. One of them very likely the real Woodes Rogers. Yeah, I think it's interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of missing pieces in terms of kind of the pirates themselves, especially over the last 300 or so years. Who knows what little truths or embellishments have kind of been made over time, and what really was and what really wasn't. Just to shit a little bit on one of my kind of favourite periods of history here. So yeah, when Marion Guthrie kind of chortles a little bit at Jack's read a book kind of line, I don't know if she's laughing in agreement with him, or she's sort of with me a little bit in the kind of, well, it depends on who wrote the book kind of sentiment. But yeah, of course, the woman Jack's talking to, she sums up maybe the real kind of sad truth of it all, you know, when she mutters, "The truth isn't nearly as interesting." We do it, we all do it, we're all guilty of it. We buy the papers, we click the links, we watch the videos with, deep down, I think a lot of the time, hope a lot of the time, you know, the full knowledge. This could be sensationalised shite. This could be absolutely sensationalised shite. I'm only getting one side of the story here. But anyway, my tin hat and kind of rabbit hole on this subject, it does go a lot deeper. So I'm going to keep it moving along and stop kind of being an old man yelling at a cloud. But yeah, this is a great scene. And I definitely... yeah, I get it a lot, and I think that's kind of what the writers are doing here. They're kind of doing a check your sources. Check your sources, people. Okay, so yeah, Jack gets his meeting with Joseph Guthrie, and he makes his proposal. I'm not going to go into it all in much detail in terms of, you know, what's said and that. Yeah, Mr. Guthrie's not alone, and no one's really paying attention to Jack at all. He's kind of going through it. Until he sort of gives his own name, though, which, safe to say, they've all heard of. But yeah, as rude as his son was, this guy is just another level of a pompous arse. Jack tells him that Eleanor is dead. He doesn't care. You know, he's got no reaction to it. And yeah, Jack tells him that Woodes Rogers plotted with the Spanish. He could own Woodes Rogers, make profit, own the island, you know, all that sort of stuff. Joseph Guthrie, he doesn't care. Jack's doing his best to sell this to him, but when he's got to the end of it all, it's just a flat out no. And Jack sort of goes, no? To which part? All of it? But yeah, another great delivery by Toby Schmitz, you know, the which part? Yeah, no, all of it, no interest, no emotion to Eleanor's death. And yeah, dejected, Jack heads out, but Marion Guthrie, who we sort of see sitting and just is behind him, asks about Eleanor. You know, she's dead, isn't she? She sort of asks. And she tells him to wait outside and she'll join him in a moment. And so we meet the fabulous Marion Guthrie. Yeah, what a great character, played by the brilliant Dame Harriet Walter. I recognised her in this from Killing Eve. That's what I sort of knew her from, which is still pretty recent. But yeah, she has a long established career. I've seen her in other bits and pieces, obviously. She does a lot of period pieces. So yeah, she is a great addition to these last couple of episodes. And it's a shame we didn't get her for a little bit longer, because yeah, Marion is another great, strong female character. So yeah, once outside alone, her and Jack have an opportunity to chat and talk business. Again, I'm actually really going to breeze over the kind of plot discussion they have a bit here. You know, I'm going to breeze over this one a little bit. She talks about her husband's business, and you know, she sort of points out to Jack how his proposal was never really going to work. And yeah, it's sort of made clear that she does a lot of the work behind the scenes. You know, she's doing a lot of movement, almost like another smart businesswoman we know, and that who Marion is going to meet very soon. So yeah, it's made clear that she's interested, but she's sort of asking Jack, why you? What's in it for me? All that sort of stuff. She's asking the important business questions. And yeah, Jack, he sort of makes his case with her, and he bigs himself up a bit. You know, I've got this far. But yeah, it's sort of left on a bit of a cliffhanger on what will happen next. So yeah, next scene, he returns to the ship, and Max asks him what happened. And yeah, Jack informs her it didn't go well with Joseph at all, but he points out that Marion is interested in the deal. You know, she's interested in talking further. And so Jack suggests that Max comes along. You know, he thinks that if Marion says yes, it will be for emotional reasons, not business ones. And yeah, Max being there, you know, might go a long way to winning her. And yeah, you know, go Jack. He swallowed his pride a bit, knows what's needed in this situation, and that he is going to have to take a little bit of a backseat. If he wants that last word with Woodes Rogers, then this is how it's going to have to play out. Yeah, he's heard Featherstone's give her another kind of chance plea in terms of Max. And yeah, Jack is willing to hand Max a big role to play. He's going to trust her. And yeah, so for that, Jack has to get an MVP nomination for me. He's not done in the discussion, but yeah, for what he's set in motion already, he deserves the shout now to get it out the way. So yeah, on to scene of the episode for me, I think. Yeah, just another amazing scene with just layers on layers of kind of clever wordplay, and just two strong women just at different kind of stages in their life, just impressing each other. And yeah, just Max. So yeah, Max and Marion meet. And yeah, Marion is giving them her time, but she's not fully locked in right now. You know, she's kind of embroidering when they enter, acting a little bit disinterested, which obviously with her embroidering is a really nice and kind of really sad tie-in to kind of Eleanor. She is fully what Eleanor was trying to be so earlier on in this season, you know. To most, she's coming across as kind of the disinterested wife, keeping out her husband's affairs. But of course, meanwhile, she's secretly playing that Max role, and she's very much the brains of her kind of whole new operation in her own rights. Maybe with this grandmother in her life, you know, Eleanor could have been this slick with it one day. Another sad what if, you know, what if she had grown up with some of her grandmother's influence, what might have happened. But yeah, Jack is doing all the kind of pleasantries, and he's sort of speaking for Max a little bit. And I love that Marion is like, does she speak? It's a very polite, shh, let the women talk business, dear. So very polite of that, and yeah, I'm for it. And yeah, Max sort of bigs herself up a bit, you know, what she got up to on Nassau. And she sort of hands the accounts books over to Marion's associate, who sort of starts going through them quietly on the side. And yeah, there's a bit of an awkward silence for a moment, you know, once Max and Jack sort of sit and get comfortable. You know, Marion's still doing her embroidery. She's still acting very sort of disinterested, and nothing's getting going, and Jack and Max, you know, not sure what to do. And yeah, this is just such a laugh out loud moment that I just always forget about it until it comes around. Yeah, it makes me laugh even just thinking about it, his face. So yeah, Jack begins talking. I don't know, you know, he's trying to start this off as a big thing, you know what he does, just to kind of cut this awkward silence. But Mrs. Guthrie, she just cuts him straight off. And just, yeah, Toby Schmidt's expression, and just, he sort of goes, oh, he just does this sort of thing. So funny. Yeah, just, you know, his little kind of nod, and he's, oh, all right, you're going to start. Okay, yeah. You know, just, yeah, it gets me every time. So funny. So yeah, Marion, she tells the dilemma of the kind of Tomcat story. I won't recite obviously the whole thing in full. Everyone will know the gist. So yeah, her son Richard fed the cat every night. Joseph disapproved. He punished Richard, kicked the cat, but night after night it kept happening. No one changed their habits, basically. As Marion observes, seems to be the story of Nassau. This circle of violence that no one can seem to break, and hasn't really benefited anyone, you know, obviously coming back to my title and the main inspiration for it. So yeah, she asks Max, you know, which part she plays. At this point, Mr. Oliver kind of interrupts, and he asks Max about slaves in her employ. You know, he can't see any expenses for slaves. You know, he can't see any evidence that she has any, which of course we know she doesn't, as she tells him she pays wages to her workers, which he queries, you know, why are you paying for employee when you could use slaves? But she says, Max makes the point of saying it costs less to pay wages than to pay people to, you know, watch for defectors, or just for the peace of mind that she would need guards, you know, to watch her as she sleeps. But, you know, Mrs. Guthrie sort of states it's not the only reason. Max admits she's been a slave, bought and sold, and she won't be a slave owner, which Jack reacts to a little bit in the background. I'm sure it can't be new information to him, but maybe he is reacting because he had no idea that she didn't use slaves in her business. Maybe that's what he's reacting to. I think he must have known she kind of comes from slave lineage. Maybe Anne didn't tell him, but I think he must have known. I don't know. But I think it's more because of the similarity to Vane that he reacts. I think that's what's going on, you know. I think, yeah, Vane, you know, he said something very similar about he won't own slaves, you know, obviously back in early season 3. And yeah, Max says, and I'll sort of paraphrase it a little bit, I think, you know, she says, many men have played a part in Nassau's story, but many have failed to break the cycle of brutality and failure. Your granddaughter came close as anyone before or since. Despite her best intentions, there was one truth even she was blind to see, that at some point progress cannot begin and suffering will not end until someone has the courage to go out into the woods and drown the damn cat. Woof! Great line from Mac. If things never change, the roles, the cycle will never change. It's the one observing, aware of the cycle, that's got the power to break it. Which I always read as kind of Mac's understanding to solve the problem, you know, that Marion killed the cat. That's the impression I get from Marion's reaction as well, that kind of little smirk of respect and, You've got it, you know, you've worked it out. In terms of who the cat is in our story, I'm never completely sure. I think it's more the lesson and metaphor of breaking the cycle. If we do assign it to anyone, it's probably most likely Flint, I think. Possibly Woodes Rogers too. But again, it might not be anyone specific. But yeah, just the point, you know, that Max is very aware that something big has to change in order for progress to be made. And yeah, it's safe to say, like I say, Mrs. Guthrie is impressed and she's intrigued with Max and Max's smart answer. And I think she really does recognise a lot of herself in Max, and vice versa, I think, with Max. I think Max knows from the go she can't bullshit this woman. You know, she's been around the block. She knows all the tricks. Finally, someone a bit more equal to her sort of smarts that Max is used to, you know, and that she can bounce off a little bit. Yeah, which is exactly after being momentarily impressed, Marion asks the big question: what will you do when the cat fights back? A brilliant scene. I could talk about that one for absolutely ages. Do Marion and Max also deserve MVP shouts? Yeah, absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. I think along with Jack, they all play their part in moving this thing along, you know, their own cycle, if you will, to get this new partnership underway. Jack gets her interest in the first place. Marion gives them her time, and Max sort of seals the next phase for them. They really all do play their part in this. But yeah, I love that scene. So yeah, on with our final scene to discuss. You know, we learn what the next phase is to be, and yeah, it's just another amazing scene. Really feels like a kind of full circle almost final Jack and Anne scene. So glad it's not, but on first watch, this really does feel like a goodbye between them. So yeah, Anne now, she's up and about, which is great to see. Maybe the surgeon discussed did help her out a little bit, but, you know, she's still in a lot of pain, clearly, and Jack's still just being so tender with her. The way he kind of sits her down gently to give her the update. So yeah, Marion, she's agreed to the proposal, but she has a final test to kind of prove their worth. Flint, she wants Jack to kill him. Anne knows from the go there's no chance, and she sort of asks, you know, how's he going to do that? And she means it twofold, as just sort of explain, morally as well as practically. And yeah, Jack also is very aware this is almost impossible. You know, he's talking through possible plans. He knows it's not just Flint. He's the big boss fight, but there's Silver and others he's got to get through. Many steps he's got to kind of get through before he gets to Flint. And yeah, he doesn't sound confident, enthusiastic or hopeful at all. And yeah, he points out the sad truth that he has to do it all without her. Yeah, you know, Anne at her best, it's still tough, but a much stronger chance alone. It's a suicide mission. It's a suicide mission, which they are both, you know, fully aware of. And gets to the other, you know, how could you, in the terms of even if he could physically do it, asks how he could be someone that would do that. You know, the whole world would know you were the one to betray our brothers, betray Charles Vane's memory. Yeah, but Anne, you know, she knows what Jack's name means to him, what legacy means to him, and just loyalty and this brotherhood, especially when it comes to Vane. And while she does want this all to end, as we know, and it just be them two, she knows, yeah, this is a huge sacrifice for Jack, and an even bigger one if the risk actually pays off. But yeah, Jack here just says simply, echoing her own earlier sentiments, Charles Vane is dead. I do it for us. That's how it started. That's how it's going to end. I can't. Jack Rackham willing to give up his name, his legacy, just for the smallest chance for him and Anne to quietly retire in peace, as he knows that's all she wants really. It's what he's willing to do just to get that final word with Woodes Rogers. Of course, it's all changed next episode, so I don't need to get much deeper in all that kind of aspect in terms of Flint. But yeah, still a very worrying scene in the moment, especially on the first watch. But at this point, yeah, Max comes over and sort of says to Jack they should get going. And I love Anne does her sort of one-eye evils again. You know, she's just still, she can't face looking Max in the eye just yet. But obviously some great closure with them both to discuss next episode. But yeah, another beautiful moment with Jack and Anne where he just gently stands her up and kisses her so gently on the lips. Just the love these two have. You know, I hate that we're only going to get 2 more pretty quick moments with them now, you know, with them both together. But yeah, again, I think in this moment, they're both pretty sure that this is a goodbye. They won't admit it, they won't say it out loud. And yeah, a fully fit Anne would obviously never let him go alone. But, you know, there's so much circumstances going on. And yeah, they've gone too far now to be able to leave it all behind right now. But yeah, a nice little moment with Adele where she kind of starts helping Anne walk back below deck, and Anne gives a little look back to Jack, and yeah, that look back, it just kind of kills me every time. And yeah, then alone with Max, Jack sort of asks her, you know, Jack thinks he's not coming back from this. He's sure he's not coming back from this. And he knows there's still something there for Anne, for both of them, in terms of Max. I think he knows eventually Anne will lower her defences. And so, yeah, to me, that kind of, that's a, you'll take care of her when I'm gone kind of question he's asking her. Get her through it if it happens sort of thing. That's what I think's going on there. That's the sort of question I think he's posing to Max in this moment. And Max, obviously, who answers, of course, of course she will. As I say, yeah, not much I can milk out more out of that one. It's ultimately not going to lead to where we think it is. But yeah, I've spoken about how I love Jack and Anne's dynamic so many times. It's old news now. But yeah, to watch this scene and then go back to their kind of loving but really bickering kind of scenes from season 1, I just love how far these two have come. Never seen a dynamic relationship quite like it. So many great dynamics throughout this show, but yeah, these two just elevate it to the show it is for me, the love I have for it. But yeah, anyway, you know me, I could go on a tangent forever with these two, but that's the deep dive done. So yeah, let's get an MVP sorted.
Last item.
Okay, so we have a few. We're starting to get a few roll up. We have Marion Guthrie, Jack, Max and Madi. I love Maddie's defiant one-liner kind of middle finger towards Rogers, but it is very short. So yeah, I think it's got to go to one of the Philadelphia crew ultimately. I love Marion. I think she's a phenomenal short stint little character, but I think this is a vital point for Max or Jack available here. So close to the end now. I think Jack's just pipping Max to the post here with this one. This is a brilliant episode for him. He's funny, loving, smart, humble, willing to give up everything by the end for his life partner, for Anne. I think this is maybe his last big chance to get on the board once more, whereas Max is my favourite, I think, from memory for next episode. It's going to be a nice way to pretty much finish her arc off next episode. But yeah, I think here it is possibly a final cap at 4 for Jack. But you never know. A couple I thought I'd sorted already from memory, and then I rewatched the episode and I'm reminded another character has some great stuff going on, so he could still grab another. So you can never count this guy out. But yeah, a great episode, great strong episode. But yeah, I think I will end it there. And so yeah, we'll be ready very soon for episode 8. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Peace out, and I will see you on the flip side.